So here we are on location at the Piggery, which is a local Ithaca butcher's shop and kind of local foods distributor. So we're here on location in order to be able to talk to one of the owners of the Piggery, founders, Heather Sanford, who's very graciously allowed us to come very early in the morning to come talk to her before work gets started on a very busy day. Heather is a Cornell grad and was in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. Since then has done a number of different things, but over the last 10 years or so has started to build up this business, which is now a very busy and active and important part of the restaurant and kind of meat community here in Ithaca. So Heather, thank you for being willing to give us your time.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for the interest.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into this? How did this thing get built?
It was kind of a big accident. About 10 or 12 years ago, my husband and I started homesteading on our farm. Okay. And homesteading is the idea of that you're interested in trying to grow and, as much of your own food for your own sustenance, maybe your friends and family as possible. So we started doing everything from milking cows to raising some different kinds of livestock. We'd have sheep and pigs and chickens and, gardening and stuff. And in that time frame, we realized how much we liked working with pigs as far as all the livestock. Really interesting animals to work with.
The smartest ones.
They're really smart. They're really interesting to work with. Cows are hard when they get out of their fences. It's very challenging to get an 800-pound animal back in. We worked with these heritage breeds that had big horns and would kind of toss their heads a lot. There was something just about working with all the different kind of livestock. We enjoyed working with the pigs. They really spoke to us. And they have a really interesting history. My husband went to the French Culinary School in New York City. And so pigs are traditionally one of the best homestead animals because they're so diverse in all the ways that you can preserve the meat from the harvest and stuff like that. And so we were homesteading for a little while and very interested and involved in the local foods movement. And we saw at the local farmers market here in Ithaca that it was interesting that all of the meat was kind of hidden in general. Like it was really hard to find, and it was all frozen and kind of backpacked in these unfamiliar sort of formats like rump roasts and things like that, frozen chickens. So if people wanted to make an effort to buy local meat, A, the only place they could ever go to was the farmers market, okay. And B, the format in which they could choose to buy that meat was difficult. You had to make a lot of extra steps. So the great thing, I think, is that my husband Brad and I didn't come from a farming background, so we didn't know any better. We had this idea, we're like, why don't we bring fresh, local, pasture-raised meats, all these things that are part of our mission statement, to farmers market. Why don't we cut fresh meat for people? And it blew my friend's mind at market. They're like, you can't do that. And we're like, no, we got the right license. You could totally do this. So I think us not knowing better was really great. So we were mostly interested when we started in the idea of preserving meat from the harvest. There's ways you can preserve like fruits and vegetables, and that's like drying and fermenting and pickling and things like that. But there's also kind of an old world style of way of before there was refrigeration, which wasn't that long ago, like 80 years ago, really, 90 years ago. People would harvest animals and have different ways of preserving them. So my husband and I first started going to the farmer's market with sausages and then things like pâtés and rillettes, like traditional kind of charcuterie items. And then by the 6th week at farmer's market, there was a line like about 50 people deep at the starting bell. And we were like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? This is crazy. And it is
hiring people.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of money in farming. So it's hard you can't really hire people. You just have to do more yourself. And so we, at that point, kind of felt responsible. We felt like our community here in Ithaca was saying, we totally get what you're trying to do. We're thankful that you're starting to make, like, there's my husband, items that are familiar and accessible to us. So we decided at this point that we would try to do more things for the farmers market.